All right, I have started the webinar and we're going to let everybody get comfortable, grab their coffee. When I see the participant numbers start to slow down, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody to the Active Efforts discussion within our ICWA Coffee Talk series. We look forward to your questions, as always. Just a reminder for everyone, when you ask questions, please do not put them in the chat. Please put them in the Q&A section. If you hover your mouse over the bottom of your screen, you'll see several menu options. One of those options is Q&A. And if you can place your questions in there, that would be awesome. That way we can better track them and check them off as we move through the list.
Can someone add that in the chat too, so that people can see that in the chat?
Certainly.
It might help a little bit, I don't know. Why does my screen look so different this time? Like I can't see all the people checking in.
Aloha, Jill.
Hey, aloha, Jill.
Oh, Jill. Oh. Are we looking at all participants that you're doing? Okay.
All right, it looks like the participants have all entered. We have an amazing group of, well, actually it's still climbing, 282. Welcome everybody to, again, the fourth installment of our ICWA Coffee Talk series, the ICWA Active Efforts. Today, we would like all questions that you have related to active efforts to be asked. But first, I'm going to turn it over to our wonderful panelists to, again, introduce themselves. And then we have a short presentation of what active efforts are as compared to reasonable efforts, as well as data entry of the active efforts in SSIS. Once again, my name is Eric Kratt, and I am the Social Service Information Lead Training Coordinator, and I'm also a liaison with the Minnesota Child Welfare Training Academy, and I look forward to our discussion today. I'm going to hand the baton over to Carrie to introduce herself, and then she can pass it from there.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ishtama Zewi, Iron Eyes Woman. My English name is Carrie Owen. I currently live at Tintawinto, which is the Prairie Island Indian Community. I am Umaha Wa'u, AKA a woman from the Omaha Tribe of Nebraska. And I'm glad to be here today. I've been at DHS for about 2.5 years. Prior to that, worked in child protection, and I'm glad to be here today.
Who's next? Me? Okay, I'll go. Hi, this is Richie with DHS. I've been like Carrie with DHS for about 2.5 years. I'm also from Leech Lake Band of Ojibwa, ICWA Plans Consultant. The main thing I like to point out for us when we're going through this thing is that tribes have dual citizenship. We have to think of that. They have political status. They are connected to their tribes. That's the one thing. It's like we're American citizens, but they also have a citizenship to their tribe. That's the most important thing to always think about, keeping the tribe and the children connected. I'll pass it over. Thanks. Miigwech.
Good morning, Minnesota. I'm Ann Minibirds. I'm the Native American Equity Policy Consultant on the ICWA unit. I'm a member of the Sistine-Wapton Oyate in South Dakota. I live in St. Paul, and I'm proud to say that I live in Minnesota because that is our Dakota homelands. And I really welcome this discussion about active efforts. I always like to think and say and pass on that ICWA and Mythbutt are the gold standard of social services. And I love that we have that, we set the bar that high. So I hope you can too.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Summer Day Rosette. I am a member of the Chippewa Cree tribe in Rocky Boy, Montana. I'm the SSIS ICWA training consultant and SSIS trainer with Minnesota Department of Human Services and Minnesota Travel for Training Academy. Welcome, and please let us know your questions.
I think we got everybody.
I think so.
We have another staff member, Cindy Miller, but she is not here today. In case anyone's wondering and why they don't see her, is because she's out today. So.
Oh, thanks. I was wondering that.
And playing the role of Rihanna Jacobs today is Yvonne Barrett. She's the manager of our ICWA compliance and consultant unit. So she is also here with us. So you see Rihanna Jacobs' name, but it's really Yvonne.
Oh, see.
Sorry to call you out, Yvonne.
I'm
And I
just
hope
doing
everyone
a quick
has their
audio
coffee.
check. Oh yeah, coffee. Is my audio still pretty cracking a little?
No, but
I
it's
can
like
hear
really
you.
loud.
Oh, shoot.
Try it now.
Still really loud?
It's okay.
It's all right. You can hear
Okay.
you. Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is really quick, I'm gonna start sharing my screen. If you start to have any audio issues, please reach out to, or actually for the panelists, if I start to have audio issues, will you just stop me and let me know, and maybe I'll
Raise your
just hand
hand.
over the PowerPoint. Yeah. Okay, bear with me for one moment. All right, good morning and welcome everybody to ICWA Coffee Talk on Active Efforts. This is just a quick snapshot of what our agenda will be today. We're going to go through some participant instructions after we've done the introductions. And then we're going to have Anne, she's going to go over the family brochure. We'll go into a short PowerPoint on active efforts, and then we'll get right into the Q&A. Again, please use the Q&A feature to send in your questions and not the chat feature. It's solely because we need to keep a digest of the questions that are coming in and which ones are answered, or which ones maybe potentially need to be reviewed and we get back to you on. So really quick, I'm going to go ahead and I just want to give everybody a quick reminder. We get a lot of questions about whether or not a tribe, when a tribe requests information about their children, if a release of information is required before an agency can share that information with the child's tribe. And we wanted to just, each training, we want to put this out there that no, a release of information from an Indian child's parent is not required before a caseworker. It's not required from the tribe. They're just not needed in providing information to the tribe regarding children in question who are potentially affiliated or members of that tribe. If there's anything on the panel, if you'd like to add, I can open up that for you. Nope? Okay, perfect. All right, so we're going to go ahead and let Anne kind of go over the family brochure here. So I'm going to mute my line so Anne can.
Thank you, Summer. When I started my work on the ICWA unit, I really wanted to take a look at what were we missing and what isn't happening so ICWA compliance and Mythbutt compliance can't be at the best it can be. And part of that I started experiencing was lack of knowledge coming from the parents and the families about ICWA and Mythbutt. And so as an equity consultant, I was thinking, how can I start evening up the equity? And part of it was this brochure. And I wanted the brochure to empower parents. And I like to call the brochure a family brochure, because when I think about parents of our Indian children, it's not just mom and dad. It's the whole family. It's grandma, grandpa, aunties, uncles, even sometimes brothers and sisters. So we have to look to the parents to give them that knowledge, but we also have to include family in providing knowledge too, because often the whole family is the caretaker of our children. So I had really fun developing this brochure. It was awesome to look through the graphics and things that I could use to add on to this. But I wanted to make sure that I gave a really thorough overview of ICWA and Mythbutt. And so like our coffee talks, we cover the 5 main points or the 6 main points of ICWA. So that's included in this. I would say my vision was to empower parents and family when they become involved with the county about ICWA and Mythbutt. The purpose was to provide some really high level education overview of ICWA and Mythbutt, because as we all know, ICWA and Mythbutt are so complex. But if you can get the basics to understanding that when it's your own family involved, I think that's really going to help you understand what needs to happen and what should happen when your child or a child of your family is involved with the county and it's ICWA. When I look at the graphics, I think about how colorful and beautiful our Indian way of life is. And that's what I want to focus on. I want to focus on the positive of our culture, of our families, instead of looking at the disparities all the time. So visually, I hope you can see that and you can feel that. And I often want to talk about the spirit of ICWA, and that is looking to families and keeping them together and looking to our tribes to really hold on to their resources, which is our children. So what are some ways we can use this brochure? In the resources, we've listed the link, and you're able to copy this out for yourself. At the office, we do have some hard copies, which I did send out to the tribe so they can have that as a resource. Ways to use this, I envision it that when you come upon a family and you know they're going to become involved with your system, is that you give them this brochure and that you go over this brochure and that you're open with them about this is what to expect when we have a case under ICWA. And I think that is like a partnership. Like I envision a father asking you, did you send out our Mythbutt notice? And I don't see that as a negative, but as a positive. Like, let's work on this together because it's just the betterment for our children's lives. I think other ways to use this is throughout the whole case is to make sure families are aware of their rights under ICWA and that you can give those brochures out at any time. So I'm glad that I had the few minutes here to share with you about the brochure. Thank you.
Thanks, Ann. I really appreciate you taking the time to go over that. And we did provide a link to this brochure in the resources. So when you get access to the PowerPoint, you'll have access to those links as well. There we go. Sorry, it was running a little slow. Okay, so active efforts. Providing active efforts helps you reach the goal of family preservation. Involving a tribe to be part of the case as early as possible, and participate in the first face-to-face visit is an important component of active efforts. It's an important component of family preservation. Establishing that positive working relationship with the tribe can potentially lead to better outcomes for American Indian children and families. Now, when we think of active efforts, there are specific requirements within active efforts. Prevention is one. We want to provide services to avoid removal if we can. And then if removal is something that was necessary, then we want to provide services that, that support reunification. Now, these efforts must take into account the prevailing social and cultural conditions in the way of life of an Indian child's tribe. And that's just something we need you to be aware of. Active efforts, we talk about, what does active efforts include? Active efforts are defined as rigorous and concerted levels of effort, higher than those reasonable efforts. And they should be efforts must be affirmative, active, thorough, consistent. They should be culturally appropriate. They should be relevant to safety and protection of the child, and they should be adequate to meet the needs of the child and the family. They should be culturally appropriate. I think I mentioned that, my bad. And they should also be relevant to the safety and protection. Another thing that's important is that agencies need to know that they're responsible to ensure that the active efforts that are provided are documented for the quarter reporting period as well. And that's something that when I get into the SSIS screens, we'll be able to provide a screenshot of that.
And just one thing to interject, I'm sorry, I just wanted to say, active efforts, yeah, you're always tailor fitting that to meet the needs of that family, to keep those children, that family intact. And it's different than reasonable efforts. Reasonable efforts, you give them the case plan, you do your work and stuff, but active efforts, you're reaching out to that tribe, you're seeing, not the tribe, but to that family and seeing what that family needs. If they need gas cards, to get to a therapy, or to go to school, or just set up things, you need to work that out. So I just want to keep that in mind. It's much different than reasonable efforts.
Yep. They need to be realistic under the circumstances, and prevention services to the family is important too. Active efforts in prevention to avoid removal of an Indian child from their parent. So I'm going to move on to the next slide if there's nothing else that the panel would like to add regarding active efforts. All right, so when I talked about documenting active efforts in SSIS, I'm just going to go through the next screenshots to show you where this information needs to be updated in SSIS. So the location of the active efforts folder is under the ICWA folder. Just a quick screenshot. Sorry, my computer is not. All right, users can initiate new active efforts using the action menu by right-clicking on the appropriate eligibility determination with the date. You see here that we have one for 7/22, and selecting new active efforts. You can also replicate the same functionality by highlighting the eligibility and determination date in the tree view and clicking on the lightning bolt icon at the top, or the action button at the bottom, action menu button at the bottom. So once you selected new active efforts, the create date field consists of a system generated date that indicates when the active efforts is created. The worker field defaults to the user that is logged into the system and has initiated the active efforts screen. However, other workers can be manually selected via the drop-down menu. The drop-down selections can be accessed by clicking the downward arrow next to each field. And then for the report year, this field contains a drop-down where a user may select the current year, previous year, and future year, and is based on the create date of the eligibility and/or determination. Then we have your report period. This field contains a drop-down menu for a user to select the proper quarter in which they are creating the active effort. A new active effort should be initiated for every quarter that the child is in placement or receiving child welfare services. So quarter one, as you can see in the screenshot, is January 1 through March 31st. Quarter two is April 1 through June 30th, and so on and so forth. So when you create your new active efforts, you're going to have these specific tabs, and this next one is the active efforts tab. This is just a visual. I know it's not that large for most people to see, but this tab begins with the blue help text. It helps guide users to the comprehension of ICWA active efforts. The screen also contains a list of 9 active effort questions. Users are to answer yes, no, or not applicable next to each active effort and next to each active effort, and then provide context and detailed information regarding worker and or agency efforts in the text box under each question. Users will need to provide descriptions within the text box, even if they've answered no or not applicable. A warning indicator, which is the yellow triangle, is displayed next to all fields. All fields require information before the warning indicator will disappear. Active efforts for a particular quarter may not be finalized until all fields contain required information. Now,
I just want to, that this chart you said here, this is when we're doing our reviews, a lot of us will look at this information to see what you said, if there's descriptions, details about what you did. If you have all these done, you're golden. That's great to see that, because when we're doing our reviews, we're looking, this is some of the criteria that we're looking at for active efforts. So keep that in mind to answer these as best you can, have them dated, let you know, did you contact the tribes, the dates and stuff like that. I mean, that's great stuff right there, because we go through SSIS too, but this is one thing that makes sure that for you, when you're completing your work, that you know you've done active efforts and you've reached out to the tribes. Thank you, Summer.
Yep, thanks, Richie. All right, so on that active efforts tab, this is question 9. If question 9 on the ICWA active efforts tab is answered yes, users are then required to navigate to the ICWA active efforts placement tab and document worker, and or agency efforts on that screen. If the question is answered no, then the ICWA active efforts placement tab will not need to be filled out and will not be editable. It'll be grayed out completely. You won't even be able to update anything in that on the next tab. Just a quick screenshot of what that tab looks like. This is the active efforts placement tab. This tab begins also with blue help text to help guide the user's comprehension of active efforts placement. This screen also contains a list of active efforts questions. Users are to answer yes, no, or not applicable next to each question, as they did in the first under the active efforts tab. And then you also, like Richie had mentioned, need to provide context and detailed information regarding your efforts in the text box under each question. As Richie stated, when they do their reviews, it's important to be as detailed as possible, utilizing dates, list everything that you have done. Users will need to provide descriptions within the text box, even if you've answered no or not applicable. This placement tab, active efforts placement tab, also has the yellow triangle, which is that warning indicator. And you have to complete information in that box, in each of those boxes, in order for that yellow warning indicator to disappear. Active efforts for a particular quarter may not be finalized until all fields contain required information under both the active efforts tab and the ICWA active efforts placement tab. A couple of warning screens that you may see. So this first warning is when a child may be part of multiple work groups in SSIS, but only one active efforts may exist at one time per child participant. So users will need to follow their agency's protocol in terms of care coordination and document all active efforts across each work group or service area in one active efforts record. If an active efforts record already exists for a report year and report period under a particular eligibility and or determination date, the user will receive the following error message. User should then select the OK button and either locate the already existing Active Efforts folder or double check to ensure that they are entering the appropriate report year or report period. In the case where a child is part of multiple work groups in SSIS, ensure care coordination and that all Active Efforts are being documented within one Active Efforts record per reporting, per report period and report year. So the error message that you see here is cannot save, and this is when you're trying to save after you've completed those Active Efforts. An Active Effort record exists for the same report year and report period. All right, another error message or a warning, that you might see. The warning itself states, there's already an Active Effort in draft for the same eligibility and/or determination. Finalize the earliest Active Effort record before creating another Active Effort in draft. So when a user attempts to create a new Active Effort record in a new quarter and the previous quarter's Active Efforts record status is still in draft, you'll receive the following warning message. The user can proceed with the new Active Efforts within the new report period and enter information on the new screens by selecting yes. However, if no is selected, the user will not proceed to the new Active Efforts tab. When completing, the user should revisit the record from an earliest report period and finalize that first, if possible, as there can only be 2 Active Efforts in draft status. And an additional error message that you might see, there are already 2 Active Efforts in default for the same eligibility and/or determination. Finalize the earliest Active Effort record. When there are 2 Active Efforts, Active Effort records in draft status, and a user attempts to create a third Active Effort for a new report period for the same eligibility and determination date, the following error message will appear. Users can click OK and cancel initiating the new Active Efforts. Users should review and/or research the previous 2 Active Effort records and finalize them if possible, beginning with the earliest record. SSIS will not allow users to finalize records out of sequence. And then again, just as I mentioned, the yellow warning indicators, all of the data entry fields are required in order to finalize an Active Efforts record. This include all yes, no, and not applicable radio buttons, as well as documentation with each of those text boxes. There are warning indicators, which are those yellow signs located next to each of those fields to alert users that all questions and descriptions are required to finalize the Active Efforts. These warning indicators, as I mentioned, will go away when the required information is entered. And last but not least, when the required information is not answered within the ICWA Actives tab or the ICWA Active Efforts Placement tab and a user attempts to finalize the record, the following error message will appear. User will click OK and identify the missing information by reviewing the Active Effort record and entering information related to that field. So that is the information that you would need to know when documenting Active Efforts in SSIS, and if you ever run into any error messages or warning messages. We're going to go ahead and get into the Q&A, Before we do that, I'm going to leave this screen up here because for any of those questions that you have that you need to send to the ICWA unit email, I wanted to provide that information here, as well as the brochure that Anne had gone through earlier in the presentation. There are some additional resources here, which is the ICWA Mythbutt notices feedback, Q&A, the ICWA manual, partners and providers page, and then the Federal Registrar, where you can find the list and names for all federally recognized tribes. And then again, really quick, in the ICWA partners and providers page, there's actually a link to all the tribal websites. And there's, I believe, to their web pages, and there's phone numbers and additional helpful information on the ICWA partners and providers page. All right, so why don't we go ahead and start the Q&A. All right, here we go. All right, so our first question. After sending Mythbutt or inquiry to tribes, and a tribe responds that the child is not enrolled or is not eligible for enrollment, if the family comes back in, do we need to send a notice to the tribe that stated not enrolled or not eligible for enrollment? This is a pretty big question, or there's a lot of information. Cohort Training 77 yesterday said no, you do not need to send the tribe. You do not need to send to the tribe that says not enrolled or not eligible for enrollment. Another ICWA training said yes, you do need to send to the tribe that says not enrolled or eligible for enrollment. Can you please clarify for the record? Wow, this is a. Would
Sure,
you like me to repeat that?
Sure, I can clarify that.
Okay.
First of all, I'm assuming that this person, when they're saying the family comes back in, I'm assuming they're meant that the case came in, they checked, they did the Mythbutt notice, the tribe sent a notice back saying they are not eligible for enrollment or membership. During that period that case is open, they do not have to do another Mythbutt notice or anything. However, if the case closes for longer than 7 days and reopens, another screened-in child protection report or investigation comes in, then yes, you have to do inquiry again. Inquiry must be done every time there's a new screened-in child protection case or child in, how does that?
Tell me assessment, investigation assessment.
Yeah, every time that comes in, a new inquiry must be done.
And yeah, those are some of the easier, when we're doing our reviews or audits and stuff, we're looking for the inquiry. I mean, it's pretty easy to ask. I mean, sometimes it sounds redundant if you had the case like 3 months ago, but you need to ask because we are looking for that. And we want to make sure that the child and the tribe are connected. And tribes, sometimes they change their enrollment status or their eligibility membership. So you have to keep that in mind that they do change. So Red Lake changed this last year. So they really changed up everything. So why they do that? Because they're trying to, without no children, there's no tribe. So we're trying to increase our membership and stuff for kids. So just keep that in mind. I always ask inquiry on every case that opens up. And you'll be golden.
In addition to that, if you know what tribal affiliation the child has and the case closes, and then again, it comes back open, you still have to ask that question, regardless if you know from the prior case. As Richie said, tribes change their membership and enrollment policies, or I don't know, child codes all the time. So that could be something that changes too. So it has to be done with every new screened-in child protection report.
Yeah, and tribes are the only one to determine membership. They're the ones. We are not the ones to decide who's going to be a member. We don't know what the tribes are going to decide. So I always bring that to the tribe. Just because we've had the case before saying, oh, it's not going to be eligible, the tribe makes that. And if you ever interview a family and they say, you know what, I'm not enrollable, I try to get enrolled, that would make it an ICWA case because the tribe determines that. So then you would open up that case. ICWA Mythbutt. So keep that in mind.
Summer Day and I work closely with some of the foundation's trainers that train child welfare foundations, and we can also relay this information over to that team. So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Carrie and Richie. Okay, so the next question is asking about how I'd like to see a way to copy the active efforts tabs in SSIS. It gets to be more timely than it has to be for families with 5 kids or so. The family efforts are the same and can be adjusted if needed for certain children. So what I'm going to do right now is we're going to move on to the next question. But before I do that, Eric, is that possible for someone to copy active efforts? Is it just a quick copy and paste situation?
So active efforts were built to be individualized to each child person in SSIS because not all siblings in a sibling group are fully related or blood related. So some children may have Indian heritage while others don't. So it has to remain individualized to the person, and I understand anonymous is frustration. But I do recall seeing that as an enhancement request to copy the Active Efforts records to other children who are eligible for ICWA and Mythbutt. However, I don't know where that is in the process for enhancement because a lot of other enhancement or federal enhancements are being taken into considerations right now, especially in terms of family first and other AFCARS related requirements. So that enhancement request probably won't see the light of day for quite some time.
Thank you for that. I apologize. I was thinking, okay, I'll go test it to see if that's possible, but obviously this was a question that came up, and it looks like I see the ICWA consultants shaking their heads, so they've already heard this question before too.
You're right, and I understand the frustration with that because it does take more time, but there are situations too where the child has different needs too as another sibling. They may have issues that the child doesn't have. So hopefully there will be become a way to cut and paste for those that have the same active efforts, but that's not the case for all of them. So.
Thanks, Carrie. All right, next question. If we have a family, excuse me, if we have a family let us know that they are Native but do not have any information on a tribe and have asked family members and still have no information, what do we do with a MIFPA notice?
You send the myth, if you asked all the family members and you develop a relationship with them, they can't determine what tribe they're from, then you send that MIFPA notice to the BIA.
Next question.
Thanks, Richie. Can the family brochure be mailed?
Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Just wanted to say that.
Say that
not
again?
Certified mail. Don't send the MIFPA notice certified mail to the BIA.
Okay, yes, the family brochure can be emailed to participants. Or you can also go to the, we can provide a link, but you can search for it on the ICWA Partners and Providers page too, I believe is where it's at.
I put a link to the brochure.
Thank you.
Oh, there we go. In the chat.
Put a link to the brochure in the chat. So if you travel up, you'll see a few links that I've thrown in there for the caseworker checklist, data entry requirements in SSIS, and then the ICWA MIFPA brochure is in there as well.
Awesome, thank you. Next question. We've had counties not share information about the parents' progress without an ROI, such as treatment notes, DAs, etc. Are parents covered by ICWA as children are?
Yes, it's about the family. It's about services for that child.
All right, thanks, Carrie. Can I get the DH number? Oh, on the family brochure, it was put in the chat, so you can just click the link in the chat, and then the number will be in the top right corner under the barcode. Regarding communication with tribes about tribal children and needing releases, if the parent who is also a tribal member says they don't want the tribe to be contacted, any suggestions on how to deal with that? Do the parents have the right to ask us not to communicate with the tribe?
No, they do not. The tribe needs to know. It's like you have to report that, let them know that you're working with one of their children, one of their families. It's required. It's like mandated.
Thanks, Richie. We've next
Jill
question.
Jill added
Carrie.
to this. Can you read what Jill just added? I think somebody added to that too. I can't find her comment. The BIA
I
has
see one in chat.
Oh, she's talking about, it says the BIA has a good resource for tracing American Indian heritage. Thanks, Jill.
Okay, next question. We've had county workers say that what we, the tribal workers, do is their active efforts. Is that true?
Can you say it again, or did you get that?
Yeah, sorry. We've had county workers say that what we, the tribal workers, do is their active efforts. Is that true?
No, that's not
No.
true.
Yeah, no.
I mean, if they're going to be reporting on active efforts, it's what they did to help reunification with the family. It's not what somebody else did. Maybe they're talking about, well, we are working with the tribe and the tribe's working with the family. That does not alleviate you from doing active efforts and documenting that, though.
Yeah, it's a tough question. You see the scenarios too on that.
Yeah, I'm wondering.
Is that a tribal
Okay,
worker asking something?
It must be, yeah.
Okay.
Next question. Since it is under the participant tab, if there is more than one case, does there need to be more than one tab? For example, children's mental health and child protection workers, especially in a small county where collaboration is frequent.
I don't understand the question. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't either. Good job.
Okay,
Say it
so
again.
this is going back to the presentation, and I think this person is asking if there should be more than one active efforts record if the person is associated with different work groups. For example, if they're
Oh,
in a child protection work group or a children's mental health work group. And I believe the presentation alludes to that, the fact that since the ICWA eligibility determination itself follows the person, so does the active efforts record. So you need to be having interdisciplinary meetings and reporting on one active efforts record related to the most recent eligibility determination. Does that make sense? So one record, one active efforts record, you're all collaborating, interdisciplinary, and adding that information onto one active efforts record.
Thank you, Eric.
next question. Do we need to fill out the active efforts tab for youth and extended foster care?
ICWA applies to individuals under the age of 18, but I still believe it applies even when they're in extended foster care.
Yes,
It does, Richie?
up to 21.
Up to the
Oh,
age of
21.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Do we need to do active, oh geez, that's the same one, excuse me. If there are 9 children placed, is there any way not to have to do this 9 different times? Sorry, this was answered earlier. Because like Eric mentioned, the active efforts tabs are unique to the individual. Next question. If a tribe determines a child is not eligible after sending the Mythbutt and Genogram due to no parent or grandparent being an enrolled member, but the child is a quarter native, do we still have to do the active efforts quarterly?
So they got a letter from the tribe stating they're not eligible for membership or enrollable. It's stating that. That's what you need. You need that letter before you can not, provide active efforts. So you have to have a letter saying that from the tribe saying this child is not eligible for membership.
Yeah, and the comment about the part about 1/4 native, that none of that matters at all, because it's up to each tribe to determine the child's eligibility for membership or enrollment.
Yeah. Each tribe is different. They all go by different things and how they deal with membership. So always keep that in mind, is because they say that they're 1/4. That doesn't mean nothing. You have to talk to the tribe and they will determine that for who's going to be eligible.
So if you've got a letter stating that the child is not eligible for membership or enrollment, it is not an ICWA case.
Right. I'll give you here's an example of active efforts. We got a determination letter saying the child was not eligible to be enrolled in this tribe, but if we had information on the mother, the child would be eligible. So active efforts would be like, you know what, when we saw that little part of the determination letter saying if we had more information on the mom, there was a case where I went up to Red Lake and I got information from the grandma, and I found out that the father was a Red Cliff tribe. And if you know anything about the tribes of Red Cliff accepts blood from other tribes and stuff like that. So by getting that information, doing active efforts, reaching out to that Red Cliff tribe, that child was ICWA eligible. So you have to keep that in mind. So always make sure when you get that termination letter that it says they're not enrollable, or if they had more information, that could still be ICWA eligible. Active efforts would want you to push out for the best interest of that Indian child to make sure they're protected under the tribe.
Thanks, Richie.
Yep, thanks, Richie. Okay, so the next question, that's a large question. What is the requirement for the Active Efforts tab during an assessment where it's closing with no ongoing service recommendations? So it says tribe has said kids are enrolled and eligible for enrollment.
Mm-hmm.
Tribe has said kids are not enrolled or eligible for enrollment. Tribe has not responded. Those are the three bullets that were added into the question. In case management, when we hear back from the tribe that the kids are not eligible, or enrolled or eligible for enrollment, do we have to enter them until we hear back from the tribe? For example, let's say CM work groups open during Q1, and we hear back from the tribe in Q2 that kids are not enrolled or eligible for enrollment. Do we complete active effort tabs for Q1, quarters 1 and 2, or for quarters 1 and 2?
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Yikes, that is a very
Yeah,
large question.
Well,
So
Yeah,
well,
we might.
can I try to take a stab at the first part
do it.
from an SSIS perspective?
Go for
Do it, Eric.
Okay. So if you're in an assessment work group and you have your open ICWA eligibility determination and you've created your active efforts, you're going to go into the first tab of the active effort screen and answer all of the questions on that screen, yes, no, or NA. To the questions that you answer yes, you will provide information as to what you've done. Not all questions will be pertinent to your assessment work group. So you will, but you still have to answer those questions, yes, no, or NA. And in the field descriptor where you type your comments for no and NA, you can just simply say not applicable or elaborate further. For the questions that you've answered yes to, you like involving the tribe, reaching out to the tribe as part of your inquiry, add that information, dates, times, you know, everything that you would potentially enter into a chronology case note. When the assessment closes and no ongoing services are needed, you would simply close the assessment and then finalize that active efforts record for that quarter or whatever. If the tribe has not responded, but their agency has reason to know that ICWA applies, you will follow the same steps that I've outlined in my previous comment by filling out the questions on the active efforts screen as yes, no, or NA, and then providing response in each one of the text boxes. In the release that's coming out this Wednesday, you will be able to go navigate to the ICWA Applies and Determinations tab and select pending for any ICWA eligibility determinations that you have not heard back from the tribe. You can leave those in pending status, but that should not affect what you're doing with the active effort screens when you have reason to know that ICWA applied. Does that
Thanks, Eric.
summarize?
Yeah, I think that was great.
Yes.
Yeah, very detailed. Thank you. So the second portion, in case management, when we hear back from the tribe that the kids are not enrolled or eligible for enrollment, Do we have to enter them until we hear back from the tribe? Do we have to enter active efforts until we hear back from the tribe? I mean, you should still be providing active efforts.
Yeah,
And so
didn't
if
they
you're
say that
providing,
they-
then you'd want to document that.
yeah, if they have not received a letter stating that they're not eligible
It is an
for
ICWA
membership,
case.
yes, yeah, then it's ICWA case. You have to wait for that letter to come. It's always ICWA until you get a letter stating from the tribe that it's not. And sometimes you don't get a letter sometimes.
So you would
The
definitely have to
question,
answering that first question, do we have to enter them until we hear back from the tribe? Yes, you do have to enter active efforts until you hear back from the tribe whether they're eligible for enrollment or membership in writing.
Because you don't want to find out a year and a half later that you decide not to do any active efforts and then the tribe intervenes. And that's not good for the child, the tribe, or the county. So just always make sure you're doing ICWA and Mythbutt until you get that letter from the tribe saying they're not.
Now for the example one, I'm not sure about that. I don't know how that works in SSIS. Of course, they would still be doing documenting active efforts in that quarter. But what if they receive something from the tribe the second quarter saying a letter saying, oh, this child is not eligible for membership enrollment? How do they handle that within SSIS under active efforts?
Well, leading off of
for
your
quarter two.
for leading off of your previous response that if they receive a letter that ICWA doesn't apply, then they wouldn't need to
Document.
continue.
Yeah.
They wouldn't
Right.
need to continue with the active
Right.
efforts. They
Right.
would just
It's
finalize
done.
the active efforts from that particular quarter. They would go to the ICWA
Yep.
applies and determinations tab and enter
Determinations.
the tribal determination in the tribal determination container. And that will indicate on their ICWA eligibility tab that no, ICWA does not apply, and they will finalize it if they've met all of the requirements for all of the other screens.
Mhm.
And so they wouldn't need to continue to do the active efforts from that point.
Yep, so you would only complete quarter one and not quarter two.
So glad we have SSIS with us.
Yeah. Woo.
The container language and all that is just so
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, so sometimes you
That
just
was
have
a
to
really
talk
good
it out.
question.
Yeah, it was. Sometimes you just have to talk it out to figure it
Yeah.
out.
Right.
Moving right along.
Okay, so the active efforts SSIS info will only be completed after the tribe confirms eligibility. It is not started when court considers case is an ICWA case in between the parent identifying as Indigenous and responses from the tribe. Okay, so sorry, this,
What?
the active efforts,
Active efforts start as soon as the case is screened in.
Right.
So
Yep.
you should be attempting to fill out those active efforts screen within the quarter that the case was screened in for assessment or investigation or case management, if you will.
Yes.
so the question is where it says only will be completed after the tribe confirms eligibility. That answer is no.
Correct. From what I've been told, agencies should be initiating active efforts as soon as the case is screened in for assessment, investigation, or case management.
Yep. As soon as they say it, it's ICWA, Mythbutt.
Okay, next question. You said we do this if child in placement or receiving services. Do we need to do this quarterly if child receiving voluntary children's mental health services? Do we need to complete active efforts quarterly if children are receiving voluntary children's mental health services?
Yes, you do. ICWA MIPA applies to children mental health services. If you're providing services, you need to document your active efforts.
Next question. Can you please clarify how a worker should document in SSIS if a tribe has custody and/or jurisdiction in tribal court? So I assume this would be in relation to the courtesy case supervision.
Must be
Yes.
something like that.
So I'll provide a link to the document in chat. that'll assist you in in updating this in SSIS. There's two places that it has to be updated in SSIS. One is in the placement screen, and you need to make, and I'll provide links to this information in chat so that you know where you need to update this in SSIS.
And I mean, I would just say work with your county, because every county does it different. Some people do placements and they're responsible for doing that piece, not you as a worker. So really look to your supervisor to have that conversation with them.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Follow up to my question about children mental health services. Okay, this is regarding whether or not that active efforts needed to, if active efforts were required for children's mental health voluntary services. And this person is saying, what if the child is not in placement? Do you still need to do?
If it's an ICWA case, active efforts have to be provided whether the child is in placement or not. Active efforts is one of the provisions of Mythbutt and ICWA, so you would have to document that, yes.
Yeah.
And when you look at the ICWA Active Efforts screens in SSIS, there are two separate tabs. There's the ICWA Active Efforts tab, and then there's the ICWA Active Efforts Placement tab.
Placement.
So the ICWA Active Efforts tab itself is universal for all case types where ICWA applies. ICWA and Mythbutt apply. However, if question 9 on that screen is yes, the child is in placement, then additional questions will need to be answered on the ICWA placement screen for active efforts.
And when you have cases like that, and you're trying to reach out to the tribe, and maybe tribes are really busy, so but make sure that you're already reaching out to them, like leaving them voicemail messages, updates with emails, because a lot of those tribes, they do keep track of it and stuff like that. But sometimes when there's like cases, like Mythbutt cases, receiving services, sometimes they don't have that capacity to reach out to everyone. But just always make sure you're doing that. That's good for, it's good for everyone to keep track of everything for active efforts.
Thanks, everyone. Next question. For family court cases involving an American Indian child, when there's a third-party custody proceeding, ICWA applies. Is there a way that DHS monitors the family court cases when ICWA applies?
I don't think we really have. I don't think we really looked at the family court ever really, but ICWA applies, but we haven't really dove into that. As far as I know, if anyone else has any more intel on that, but we usually don't look at family court cases.
I just want to remind our panelists that it is 10:59, and I wanted to request if we wanted to extend our conversation an additional half hour.
Is there a lot more questions?
There's quite a few.
I knew you were going to say that.
That's fine with me.
Sure.
So if our attendees want to hang out with us for an additional half an hour, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, again, we are recording these conversations, and hopefully we'll have them available for individuals who want to request them. We'll have a more formalized process for viewing the videos at a future time. So anyway, go on with the questions, and I will close my mouth.
Next question. If ICWA, or excuse me, if active efforts is an ongoing thing, why is only one entry allowed during the report period? I know you can add on to a draft, but allowing more than one entry would allow more than one worker to enter in different activities that they did under active efforts instead of it being under one worker.
Let's look at SSIS question, sorry. Okay.
Well, I can't answer why they're only allowed. I assume I don't want to assume. I can't answer that. Maybe we need to, this needs to be another one of those enhancement requests. Yeah.
Wait, so, sorry. Okay. I was going to say that you can keep your report period in draft and continue to add information in, but the question goes on.
Yeah, it looks like they know they can do that.
Yeah. Who, maybe someone can get back, oh, it's on anonymous, I guess
So,
not. Oh, well.
The guidance that I've received, if there's more than one active work group for a child, when you have those interdisciplinary meetings, you're selecting one individual to enter the information on the active efforts screen, rather than having multiple hands on, or multiple people enter that information. But I can get clarification on that. Don't take me at 100% with that. But that is the information that I've received in the past, is that with these meetings, you're choosing the one person to enter all of the efforts into the active efforts screen.
And it was so similar to the answer you provided on an earlier question then, when there's multiple, like community mental health and child protection. Got it. Okay, so I'm just gonna list that Eric will provide clarification and send with the Q&A, just so that we have something in the box there and we know it wasn't answered live. Next question, if a child is on a trial home visit for that reporting period, do we put yes or no for question number 9, if they are in placement? Yeah, do we put yes or no if they're in placement for question number 9? So then the active efforts placement tab will become editable then.
That's correct.
So if they're on trial home visit, then yes, you would answer that question yes, so that they have to fill out the active efforts then for the active efforts placement tab?
Yes, there are specific questions on the ICWA Active Efforts Placement tab that allude to trial home visits. And a trial home visit is not established permanency, so therefore active efforts are still required.
Thanks, Eric.
Good job, Eric.
Next question. In my county, we have lots of old CMH and DD cases opened long ago, and they had never sent a Mythbutt notice out for the case, voluntary cases. So when they go to close, they cannot close an SSIS because all of this has not been addressed. Do we send out the Mythbutt even if it's late and try to backdate the active efforts?
Like they're like 2 or 3 years old or something, voluntary, long time ago.
That sounds like something to talk offline about,
Yeah.
in my opinion. I don't know if it's good practice to go and backdate and send notices to update SSIS. But
I was also gonna, oh, sorry, Eric, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna recommend that this also needs to be talked to that county that person's from, and they need to figure out how they're going to address those. We can't tell anybody how to do that. They're gonna have to figure that out and maybe call, like you said, Erica, offline conversation.
Next question is about the ICWA Partners and Providers page. We'll provide a link to that page in the chat. And again, it will be part of the PowerPoint, so you can click the link from the PowerPoint as well. Next question, some tribes always combine blood quantum so that a child may be ICWA eligible. Oh wait, sorry.
Yeah, that's right. I think
also, she replied with the correct, some tribes also combine blood quantum so that a child may be ICWA eligible for the child protection case.
Yeah, I think Richie kind of talked about that a little bit earlier. You're right, Jill, there's tribes that will accept other tribes of blood quantum to have them eligible for ICWA and Mythbutt. But I think Richie kind of touched on that too, but thanks for adding that in. That's really important.
Yeah. And some tribes won't. Keep that in mind. Depends.
Right. Next question.
Can you give examples of what kind of information you would like to see entered into the active efforts tabs? Are you looking for specific dates, copy and pasted case notes, or a general summary of information?
I always like looking, like contacting the tribe, contacting, tribal, working with the tribes and stuff is one of the main things that we always look at. Seeing how did they try to reunite the family? What active efforts did they do? The dates in there. Having a case plan signed, having the tribe sign that. I know Carrie has a lot more information than that. She loves that stuff. So
Yeah, I think on that, you're doing a summary of everything that you've done. For instance, provided transportation to all outpatient treatment programs. And if it's something like that, where there's multiple times you did it, we're going to also be looking for those in your SSIS chronology notes as far as the dates and for more information on that. But
like,
if you can add dates in that, the active effort part, that would be awesome, because we do look there when we're doing our reviews, and then we won't just look there, but we'll also look in your SSIS chronology notes too.
like gas vouchers, paying rent assistance or deposit, stuff like that, making sure that you're trying to have the family and the children together. We're looking for information like that, not reasonable efforts, like active efforts. Stuff that's like home visits and stuff, like home visits, are you doing it in the most natural setting, not just having it, like at a DHS building or something like that? Did you go to like a McDonald's or something? Are you able to do that, or go to grandma's, a better place even, actually. So stuff like that we're looking for.
So, I mean, it's fair to say we want a summary, but it's not like, oh, we did active efforts this month, we did 10 of them. That's not the kind of summary that's going to be beneficial to you. It's really writing out exactly what you did, like Richie said, giving examples of what you did.
Don't put yes on it.
Okay.
Next question. Does it matter which BIA we send Mythbutt notices to?
Could be your regional office.
Yeah. Always regional.
Ours here, our regional offices in Minneapolis, or Bloomington.
Yeah,
Midwest regional office. Yep.
So if a family is, to build onto that question, if a family is affiliated with the Omaha Tribe of Nebraska, would they want to reach out to the BIA for that particular region of the country?
No, you sent it to the Midwest
Or
region.
just send it to the Midwest? Okay.
Yeah,
I wanted to know that.
Good question, though. I mean, I've asked that myself.
I can provide a link to, there is a link that we can provide,
yes. Correct?
Because I put the Federal Register in there, but there's also the one from the BIA.
The electronic version?
The one who had the,
yeah. If you send out that link, there should be a part where it says the electronic link where it's updated every 4 months. That's a good one to. You just click in the name of the tribe and it pops out that way.
I would keep the one you have, Summer. That's the one.
Okay. Next question. To clarify, we don't need a release to share the parents' treatment progress notes, etc., with the tribe.
Right. The tribe,
there's language. Oh, go ahead, Richie.
No, I mean, yeah, you don't need that because the tribe is, they have party status and you're reaching them. It's like one time I was working in a court case with a county attorney and we're transferring this child to tribal court, and the county attorney said, Richie, can we trust the tribe? I said, yes, you can trust the tribe. It's okay. The tribes have party status. They have their own lawyers, their judges. They take care of their people. So just keep that in mind. It's like the tribe asking us, like, can we trust you? So just keep that in mind. Just we always have to, and I don't mean that offensive. I mean, I just want everyone to think that the tribes are, they're their own people.
They are privy to all the information that is in your SSIS chronology notes. All that's in the file. Okay.
Next question. We are at 11:10. Next question. Notification is still required even if the biological parents don't want the tribe to be notified. What is the statutory citation for this mandated requirement?
Where's the, I'm sorry, I'm trying to read it where you're at and
I'm at 10:41 a.m. anonymous attendee. Notification is still required even if the biological parents don't want the tribe to be notified. What is the statutory citation for this mandated requirement? I can put that in chat.
Yeah, it's the Mythbutt notice, 260-761 subdivision 2A, where you have to reach out to them. It's the law. It's required to reach. That. That's just Mythbutt. We can go into ICWA.
And there's statute, there's language in ICWA and Mythbutt, so.
Right.
Oops.
You might want to talk to your county attorneys. They might be able to provide you with that information, but we'll also post it up there too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you.
Where are you at?
So the next question says anonymous attendee, 10:42 a.m.
Okay.
All of my questions are answered, so it goes to the very top for me. When sending out Mythbutt notices, both in-state as well as out-of-state, I've been told by numerous tribes that they do not want the Mythbutt notices, including being yelled at and hung up on. I do not go to court with my youth. It is a voluntary service. In regards to active efforts, how do you respond to a tribe that does not want to hear from you until you are in court?
It's
Document it.
it's a state law and
Yeah.
you're required to do it by law. Sometimes if, especially out of state tribes, they don't have Mythbutt because it's not in their state. So sometimes just sending a small blurb of that and educating them that this is what you're required to do by law, it might help a little bit, but regardless, you have to document that you did it. It is required by law.
And one of the key things
We
is
do a
active efforts.
review.
Oh, sorry. So one of the key things is active efforts is if you're working with that tribe, developing that relationship so they understand you and they get to know you. So you're just like a cold caller and stuff like that. So I always want to develop, when I was working out there, you always develop a relationship with those tribes, you get to know them, you talk to them. And so if you have a misunderstanding, you guys can easily work it out and you'll figure that out and stuff like that. But I get it, it's really hard though, like to say, we don't want this. This is not, it's mandated by the Minnesota law that we're required to. So let's keep that in mind.
And we meet with the ICWA Advisory Council, and we've met with them quarterly. We've met with them more often than that, and we've never heard from any of the tribes that they don't want Mythbutt notices. And we've had a recent conversation with them, or Richie has. So I guess if you continue to get those, maybe write in our CRM and let us know. Let us know more about that, and then we can try to touch base on that.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, can we circle back to the question about treatment records? I just want to make sure that we are 100% sure that we're able to do that. Not to say that you guys aren't the experts, but I would just like to check into that a little bit more about a parent's treatment records, if you guys wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I can pull that up in ICWA too afterwards, and we can go over that too.
Okay. I just want to make sure we are accurate on that, because data privacy training and all of that speaks to treatment records as being highly confidential and private. So I just want to make sure that we're 100% sure. So everybody just hold off on the response to that question, and we'll look into that for you.
Yeah, I'm looking at, because I mean, the tribes have party status, so that's one of the main things. But yeah, sounds like you'll check that out and stuff. But yeah, they get the information to make the determination of what's best for their children.
Next question.
You're muted, Summer.
Sorry. Please give examples of culturally specific active effort ideas. I always try to have family group meetings and look into cultural component or specific resources, but I would love other ideas.
Well, an idea of that would be, I know I had a case where a young man needed a mentor, wanted someplace to go to be able to talk with someone and to pray. And so I, found a sweat lodge that was run by a male in the neighborhood that we were in Minneapolis, and was able to connect him with that person. So that would be like a specific cultural active effort that I did. So going out and learning about, maybe there's a child who wants a native name, connecting with an elder in the community about how to get this child their name. Maybe a child wants to start dancing at powwows. So then you connect them with somebody to get them dance regalia done. Those are specific examples of active efforts, culturally specific active efforts.
Thank you. Next question. To add on to the question regarding active efforts when working hand in hand with the tribe, when the county is CFR and the tribe has jurisdiction, would the county worker report active efforts and fill out the active efforts tabs?
Yes. This is, I think I understand, like maybe this had to do with the other question, but you would ask, whatever you sit down and work out with the tribe when you become financially responsible for this case, hopefully, you would have a conversation with the tribe and say, what are you going to do? What are we going to do? How is it going to look like? Are you going to report to us on doing visits? Like, for example, if the tribe says that child is in placement in your county, can you guys go see the child once a month? You have to do that face-to-face monthly visit, and you decide to do that, but the tribe is going to do the other piece of doing case management, then you would ask the tribe for that information and put it into active efforts. That's just what it has to have a conversation. It has to be an agreement and a conversation that you have with the tribe on how you're going to handle that.
It's a collaborative approach, this is how you document when you're meeting with the tribes too.
In my notes, when I'm doing reviews, I've seen some counties who have done the home visits for the foster home with the tribe, and then they report that. But then I've had others where the tribe does everything, and so they report that, and the worker puts that in to their tabs, active effort tabs. Just depends how you decide to do that. Okay, next. Sorry, I'm just trying to get through as many questions as we can.
Tribal workers brings parents to treatment, gets them the personal items needed to stay. Oh, I guess that's not a question. Sorry.
Let's move on to the next one.
Do the panelists have suggestions for a difficult case? Child is almost 18. Both child and legal guardian are refusing to reunify and do not want to participate in reunification efforts. How can the agency continue to provide active efforts? Do we just continue to offer services?
We can respond on the policy and the law and stuff, but when it comes to how to handle cases, I don't think we can respond on those.
I mean, like, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, family group conferences, that's always helpful, like the tribe there and stuff, if they can do that. But yeah, it's kind of, this idea, so.
Thanks, Richie.
Next question. County worker then says they are helping the client succeed in treatment in court, also telling the tribe that they do not know what else to do. I'm sorry. A couple of the questions seem like statements. If you can rephrase your question a little more clear for us, that would be really helpful. We want to make sure that we're answering your questions thoroughly, but this one is
I think that was an add-on to to a previous question. And
Okay.
again, I think that's information that should be discussed internally at the agency to figure out how to proceed. And if there are policy related questions, to bring them to the DHS ICWA MIFPA CRM email.
Yep.
And the next question is,
Okay,
I've
next.
been told a verbal response from a tribe can be entered for a MIFPA notice. I frequently do not get a response for MIFPA notice due to it not being sent certified mail. So lots of MIFPA questions today, MIFPA notice questions.
Which is part of active efforts too, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to understand this question, but I think what they're asking is they did a MIFPA notice. First of all, the tribe does not need to respond to MIFPA notices. They are not required by law to respond to MIFPA notices. They may or may not. A verbal response from the tribe can be entered. Yeah, anything that the tribe says to you or calls you and says, oh, good, yeah, that child's enrolled or whatever. I mean, document that. That would be best practice to document your conversation with the tribe. Where is that question? Is there another part of it? I don't have anything else to add unless you do, Richie.
I think we're good, just, yeah.
And then Anonymous asks, I have a youth in extended foster care. They are not showing up in data cleanup for needing active efforts. Just want to make sure. I think SSIS is looking at the age of the youth. However, ICWA does apply until, as our panel indicated, until
21.
the age of 21. So continue to document those active efforts in SSIS for best practice. Just trying to filter through these questions to make sure that they're active efforts related or closely related to active efforts. So Annie asks, so I had understood you did active efforts to keep the tribe in the loop as to services child is currently receiving. You just alluded to the active efforts are not needed for eligibility.
After
Annie,
eligibility.
I think you may have misunderstood. Active efforts are ongoing throughout the life of a case.
I think I know what she's referring to. Earlier on, we had a question related to when the notice is received from the tribe. When the agency receives a letter from the tribe stating that the child is either a member or not a member, we confirmed that active efforts, of course, you would complete active efforts if they, even when they are deemed a member, but we also stated that if the tribe sends a notice to the agency stating that the child is not a member, that's what I think she's referring to. When they're not a member, then active efforts are no longer required. And it was in relation to the Q1, Q2 question, where we had said in Q1 they would complete the active efforts. And then because in Q2 they received a notice stating that the child was not eligible for membership and not a member of the tribe, so then Q2's active efforts were not required. I think there is a misunderstanding here by the agent or the worker.
It's just hard when we're guessing about what they're saying. So I would just recommend that we move on to the next question.
Can you please clarify, is the active efforts tab only for kids in placement since ICWA cases are for kids in placement?
No,
So
active
there's
efforts are for all child welfare related cases where ICWA and MIFPA apply. There's a ICWA active efforts tab in SSIS, and then there's a placement tab to the right. If the child is in placement, you will continue to answer questions on the placement tab. So there are two tabs in SSIS. One is the active efforts general, and then there's a placement tab as well if the child is in placement. So
ICWA and ICWA and Mythbutt apply to kids who are receiving services. So they don't have to be in placement. You're still going to be implementing the provisions of ICWA and Mythbutt.
Yes.
And then I think we only have time for one more question, as we have about 4 minutes remaining. What do you recommend for tribal consultation when there is not an assigned tribal worker, such as a family assessment not in court, and the tribe has responded that the child is eligible, but there is no assigned worker to contact?
What I would recommend then is that maybe you send an email out to the family services, just updating them on what's going on with the case. And I would try to do that monthly, letting them know whether they're involved or not, whether there's a worker involved or not. When that worker comes aboard, they can at least share that information with them. And it shows that you're doing active efforts by staying in contact with the tribe.
Yep. Active efforts is relationships. You want to keep on contacting them and reaching out to them, so they'll know when you get a new worker assigned to that case, or even contact another tribal worker that's working for that tribe. Maybe they might do it, but maybe contact the director, maybe be the main person to let them know.
I just wanted to really quick before we close out the session today, let everybody know that I posted in the chat the statute and statement from statute that allows a tribe to have access to a parent's treatment records. If a parent's treatment record impacts the removal, return, or termination of a parent, the tribe should have access to the records because they cannot make an informed decision without all of the information. Just like you at the agency would have access to that information, the tribes would also have the rights to that information because they would also be the ones making decisions, about their children. And you need the parent information to do that. So I just wanted to provide that for everybody.
Thank you, Summer. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I knew we had that language, but I
Yep.
had to wait until we were done to find it. So
Right.
Just to make that clear to everybody that any information you have can be shared with the tribe because they have to make these informed decisions about the child, just like you do. That's why you're getting the information. And the tribe is a partner in this. This is the tribe's child.
Yeah.
So it's like their parent almost. All the information you have should be shared with them so they can make informed decisions about the children, their children.
Yeah, they're the experts. They're the experts who raise their children. That let them, give them in the hands. The tribes make those decisions. They're ones raising their children. So no children, there's no tribes. So that's when they need all the resources possible they can have to make a determination of what they should do for the child. Thank you for that information.
Thank you, Summer Day, and I apologize, Richie, for
no problem. No.
second guessing you. I just wanted to be 100% sure, so I appreciate that, Summer, and sorry, Richie.
No, it's good. It's good to bring it up. We have to go through this so we can get out. So we're right on for next time. So it's good. I like it.
And it's understandable why people are asking these questions, especially child protection workers, because it's in our head, ROIs and confidentiality, and that's something that's always on our minds. And so having this information and clarifying it and having this in state statute it's nice to be able to have that and pull it up. So thank you guys for that, and have a good day, everybody.
Yeah, we'll see you guys later.
Thank you so much, panelists. Thank you, attendees. Thank you, Summer Day, for the presentation. A lot of great information. Thank you, Jill, and everybody.
I know.
Who weighed in from a legal perspective in the chat. We got to save this chat somehow because there's a lot of good information in the chat.
Yes.
So thank you for our not bipartisan, but bystander ad hoc panelists in the chat today.
We appreciate you guys. There's all kinds of people that know about ICWA and Mythbutt, and so when you add on, it adds on to our presentation and our information. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Have a great day, everybody, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.